Have I ever had feedback I didn't? Yeah, I used to be terrible with feedback. Used to hate it. And I used to bite, like really bite.
Challenges you, doesn't it? And challenging makes you get defensive. It's a natural human reaction.
When you're asking feedback, you can say, well, okay, where am I terrible? Where do I suck? Where is it that I am terrible?
Sure you got the eyesight for this?
I might go a bit squinty here. It's right, it's on the big screen. It's fine. Inspiration Nation, hello. Lee Kemp here for another week on the podcast. As always with Ryan Boniface, and somewhere we have found the missing Jose Noya, and he is back with us again this week. So we have a full complement of nationers. Nationers? That's what we'll call ourselves, nationers. Thank you everyone for listening and downloading. Follow us on social media at Listen to IN, Listen TOIN. Joe, of course, is Jose Noya-Inspiration. Just stick that name into Google and you will get a lot of Joe. How are we doing this week, guys?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. Thanks for asking. Yeah, really good. How are you doing this week? Okay, how are you doing?
How am I doing this, Lee? Lee is doing good this, Lee. Thank you for asking.
It's late. I don't know if it's not even late, is it? I think it's that time, isn't it? Yeah, by the way, inspirationers, isn't it? Are we inspirationers?
We could be inspirationers.
Inspirationers. Yeah,
okay.
Let's go with that.
We are inspirationers. Right. So what inspirational topic are we talking about this week then, Joe?
So today we're talking about why you don't want feedback.
Okay.
Why you don't want feedback. And the reason I'm digging into this is because people don't want feedback. The reason they don't want feedback is because they don't want to hear bad news. All they perceive as bad news, but actually is where the lessons are. So I wanted to sort of go back to a couple of weeks ago, where I'm starting to blog about my experiences and where I got a bit of feedback, and I was very challenged with it. And in fact, to the point where we got all this way down the road and this feedback came in on this big project that I felt really upset, and it got me really upset, and it really took the to coin an expression, Ryan, actually, I'm going to borrow your expression, took the wind out of my sails. I've been basically pouring blood and sweat and tears into this project, actually, and like you get some feedback and it like punches you in the stomach because you care for it so much and you want it to win. And you get this feedback, and it was really interesting because when I had this feedback, I thought, oh, and I thought, I've been doing this all this time, and I just needed it would have been great to have it a little bit earlier, but it was still a really good point that I got. So I decided that I'd blog about it. And so what I am doing is starting to blog about these types of things. So if you go on there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw it over to Lee and Ryan. But in a minute, I want Lee and Ryan to go over to the website, and I want you to go onto the blog, and I want you to find the second to last blog, which things that make you cry. And I want you to like just get down on what I'm going to do. We'll have a little talk first. So while you're doing that, and while you're searching on the internet rapidly, and I know you'll find it, I just want you to tell me what your thoughts are. Have you ever had any feedback, guys, where you had the feedback, but you didn't really want the feedback, or you've got the feedback, but you said, well, I really don't want that feedback because of the whole thinking of, oh, I'm going to have to learn something from it or whatever. I was really pleased to receive the feedback, even though it was difficult. So I just wanted to throw that over to you guys. And obviously people here on Instagram, I know at the minute, where do you sit with this?
So quickly, and I will answer your thing in a minute. What are we looking for?
It should be the one, things that make you cry. I think it's the second one. If you go to the bottom of that first blog and then just go to the previous one, hit previous. Should be the one. You got it? This is great podcasting. I'll just do some narrative whilst they're looking. I didn't think it would take this long.
I definitely don't have a previous button. Oh, maybe I do.
Down the bottom. Should be
so
down
I've got a bit that says we don't enjoy it. It can feel terrible and we can get totally emotional.
Yeah,
is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. Yes.
When the hardest of times just makes you cry is the title.
That's it. That's the one. Ryan got it exactly right. That's it.
Oh yeah, that's it. But you said the second to last paragraph. That's where I am.
The last blog, not paragraph.
Right. Sorry, I'm with you. So anyway, back on track, because this is making terrible listening for people.
Go on. Yeah. So what's your view on that then? Any of you? Lee, Ryan?
Have I ever had feedback I didn't? Yeah, I used to be terrible with feedback. Used to hate it, and I used to bite, like really bite. Um, it took a good manager to beat it out of me, if you like. But I used to hate it. My own perception of how something went was pretty much always different to how everybody else perceived that it went. Don't know why. I don't think it was an ego thing, because maybe it might have been, but I didn't think I was ever good enough to have that kind of thing. And it wasn't until it got made blatantly clear to me that I see things one way and somebody else or everybody else sees it another way, that I was like, oh, maybe that's not the case. Um, and I also used to think that constructive feedback was a personal attack a lot as well. I used to think that somebody thought I was terrible and therefore they had to make a comment on it to push me down the stairs with it, if you like. But it took a bit of learning and a bit of practice. But if I don't agree with somebody's feedback on me now, I either don't listen to it, or if I do my best to see where they're coming from and see if potentially maybe they are right.
So just a question, because something's changed. So what made you change? You said that perceptions of the feedback. What's developed over the years, Ryan, for you then to sort of now be able to accept the feedback?
I think maybe my understanding of just knowing that not everything is how I thought it was, and understanding that my empathy needed to be better, so I can understand how somebody else might have understood a situation or read a situation or thought about something. I think now I have that, it helps me understand what I should be saying or doing to get the best outcome, or a lot of a better outcome anyway than what I was getting.
Was there a pivotal moment when you thought, maybe I do need to think about what they're saying? Because I know you said you bit back a lot. I'm just wondering whether there was a pivotal moment to say, do you know what, I do need to start listening to this for me to get better.
I can't remember a specific situation, but I remember when and about the time that I probably clicked. I don't remember exactly when it was, but I remember when I wasn't that way, and I remember when I was that way. And that's coming around to 2 years ago now, I think. And I think at that point, we did something called a 360 feedback. Is that commonplace, or is that just my workplace thing? Is that a lot of people places do that? I would imagine so. But we did a 360 feedback session, and a lot of my peers, because I was in a position where I would not deputize for my manager, but would cover for them if they were sick or on holiday. And that didn't happen a lot, but that would happen infrequently throughout the year. And I always thought I gave messages across well, and the team responded to me with me. But when there was a specific section in it about communication, and they all ranked me really low, didn't say anything bad, but just thought that I could have been better with some of the way I came across, how I delivered things, how I was. And it wasn't until I saw that I was like, okay, maybe that's not the case. And I think that there or thereabouts was when I started to notice it a bit more, I think.
I've got an observation on that, because that's interesting, because it came from maybe a manager who didn't sort of quite set it, but then when it came from your peers,
it wouldn't have just been from the manager. It could have been from anyone. Could have been from my mum and dad. I would have been, oh, you're wrong.
But it's peers, isn't it? It's like that whole group where you're on a similar level, aren't you?
And yeah, but I think because it was anonymous, people could really be honest about what they wanted to kind of get across. Whereas I used to think a lot of things were personal jibes or whatever, where it was anonymous and people could kind of say what they wanted and not have it matter, if you like. You could kind of keyboard warrior it a bit. It meant that what they said was likely to be more genuine, I think.
Yeah, so there's
from that old me's perspective. Now looking back, whatever feedback I was getting was obviously for the benefit of me, but at the time my thought process was, well, if they're doing it like blindly through a keyboard or writing it down without me knowing, then maybe that is a thing that I need to look into, rather than it being directed at me.
and that was a turning point.
Yeah.
I like that. It's a real good awareness bit, because, as I say, when feedback comes, you know, whether we're receiving it or giving it, it just got to come from a place of authenticity. Lee, have you got any views on that?
Yeah, I've got, and I don't really remember when it started. I can remember some, I say early, you're talking 10 years ago, maybe, bits of feedback that I got where I had this, but I've got quite a good process now with feedback, especially when it's from like direct sources and stuff, where I have that instant emotive reaction, and then I kind of step back and process it through, and don't say that, because everyone's opinion is right, agree, but try and look at where it can be incorporated into what I do. So I think we talked before about, I like to be like a buffet learner. I like to take things from different people, different things they do. And I think when I can get feedback on stuff and how I'm doing it, I've got now, and I've developed it, and it's essential, for how I kind of developed over the years, to have that. I still feel that feeling. You can't get rid of it and just kind of take it textbook and that's it. But I can, or normally within the conversation, I can go from that feeling to, I see where you're coming from very, very quickly. And then incorporate that bit of feedback into, how I am, what I do, how I approach things. And I remember the first time, this years ago, manager I worked with, I've gotten really, really well with, and we had a really good, close working relationship and everything. And I asked them for some feedback, and Ryan will probably not believe that this was the case, but their feedback at the time was, you're too slow. We'll talk about doing something, but you won't implement it quick enough. And I'd like to think, Ryan, you can tell me if it's right or not, that I've probably taken that on board quite well and now do that with things. But it's one of those things, and a bit like you referenced, Joe, with your situation, which we'll come back to in a minute, because I've had the opposite. I've had a situation where I was working for someone and I thought everything was okay. A new manager came in between me and that person. And in one of the first conversations, there was a list of feedback about me to be delivered, like, oh, this is good, but this isn't good. And the feedback was, I actually could completely see what they were saying. But what really kind of irked me in the situation is that in the previous 6 or 12 months, whatever it was, they've never once said this to me. So I'm blissfully unaware that they've got this criticism of me in their head. Whereas this stuff from the leader I had at the time about being too slow and stuff, and initially I was like, what are they talking about? What do they mean? And especially now looking back, I can see where that was, and actually having the feedback was a trigger to changing that behavior. So I've been in, I suppose, because I've been in that situation, I didn't really link the two things until then, where I think I felt hard done by because I didn't have feedback. I think it makes me, in my head, there's a trigger to be quite receptive to it now.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That whole thing around that we don't really want it, because it's that whole thing of getting that feeling.
It challenges you, doesn't it? And challenging makes you get defensive. It's a natural human reaction.
But it makes you better once you take it on board. But I do think there's a thing around feedback, and I think there's an important thing. I think when we give feedback, I think there's an important way you do it. And I would love your views on it. One is when you give the feedback, and I was given feedback with love, like it was like with an intention to help. Like you could sense the intention. The reason I'm giving this feedback is because I want you to learn and grow and be better, because I've got your back. It's been given with love. And of course, people aren't going to say that in the workplace. They tend to not do that, but they'll give it with intention to help you. This is why they're saying it. So for me, provided I get that feeling that someone's got my back and they give it to me for improvement, I can take that all day. So I've got to have a good relationship. So I think that for me really works well. And I think what Ryan said about 360 feedback also works well. And I think when asking for feedback, I think you can set the ground up for this as well. When you're asking feedback, you can say, well, okay, where am I terrible? Where do I suck? Where is it that I am terrible? And that sets the groundwork, because people aren't going to just pile in on that. If they're a human being, they're not going to pile and go, yeah, you're rubbish.
I was getting my list out for you, Joe, there just now as well.
You almost said it.
He did. Nearly let a swear go. Joe's problem is he does not swear enough.
I do swear.
Just don't do it on our non-adult content podcast, please.
I do swear. But I don't like to do it. But that whole thing around that, if you say that, set the ground up, then people aren't going to go, they're going to go, do you know what? You're not that bad, but this is what you could do to improve. And I think there's two elements that when you're giving it with intention to serve, with love, and when you're asking for it, ask it, well, where am I terrible? Because by having, and Elon Musk talks about it, by having good feedback and saying where your areas are, which you're not great, makes you better.
I don't want to talk about Elon Musk, Joe. He killed my cryptocurrency investments over the weekend. So along with, what's his name? I've forgotten it now.
Jeff Bezos.
Other guy. No, Tony
Robbins.
Tony Robbins, not Tony. How dare you besmirch Tony Stark? Tony Robbins and Elon Musk are on the banned list.
But Tony Robbins has banned us from those pop.
Exactly, and that's why he's on our banned list now. And I don't know what you think on this. One thing I like to do as well, giving feedback, because quite often people I'm giving feedback to are going through things I would have gone through, and it's kind of shaping them for an environment that I'm in and stuff like that. And I would quite often like to link in the context of why. So if this didn't happen, this is what could occur and why. And I like to then intersperse that with how I've learned that lesson the hard way myself. So there's a bit of and again, for me, people can choose to either take that on board or not. It's, that's down to them. But given a bit of the reason why behind, certain things are done a certain way, or to avoid things, or to do, be proactive about something. And I think putting a bit of not only context around it, but then linking it to this is where it could go wrong, and I've actually done that thing, rather than kind of being on a preachy position, I find helps. I suppose that's my way of doing it with love, like you say, Joe.
Yeah, and I think it's a vulnerability, isn't it? I think
people really appreciate that you can be open and honest about that stuff.
Yeah, I agree with that. So that is a good view on that, and I think it's totally valid. Ryan, you got any views on that?
Yeah, I tried to do something similar. I suppose you could call it reverse empathy, if you want to coin it to a title, putting them in your position rather than you obviously thinking about somebody else's position, I guess. But a lot of the time, I'll try and do something similar, and I'm not quite sure where I learned that from. Maybe that's just because that's the best way I would like to understand. As in, try not to do it this way because otherwise X will happen. And I know this because Y happened when I did it ages ago. But I think being open to a challenge back is also something good about delivering feedback as well. Accepting that sometimes you're not going to know everything, and maybe you may make the wrong call, or you have picked up the wrong, not version of something, but picked up the wrong side of a story, if you like, if you're coaching somebody. If it can be ambiguous like that. I know some things are quite strict and strenuous, but there is obviously some ambiguity to a lot of stuff that most people will do in their workplace. And I think just having an open conversation, it isn't an opportunity to tell someone off. It's an opportunity to help somebody grow. And I think maybe that's where your love thing comes into it. But it's an opportunity to bring someone up, not knock them down.
And this is a great segue into the next bit of what I want to do tonight. So
we're going to take a commercial break before our next segue, Joe, just to promote InspirationNation.org.uk. Head over there. The full details of the Inspiration Nation coaching service, free consultation, plastered all over there. Fantastic video from me and Joe promoting that. Hit the store button and you'll be able to head over to... Oh, sorry, go on, Joe.
Now, by the way, there's a brilliant outtakes video.
Yeah, we might put that up one day. So,
everyone who's listening, can you please harangue Lee's inbox on the InspirationNation.org website, or come on the Instagram, or the Twitter, and just actually harangue Lee to let us release it on the YouTube. Just going to spread a shout out.
Anyway, back on track. Also hit the store button, head into the Inspiration Nation merch shop. Greatly appreciate any purchase in there. Hoodies, mugs, T-shirts, the works are all in there. In fact, I'm now modeling the Inspiration Nation
Love this
hoodie.
one.
I'll just do a quick turn there. Look at that. My good friend Jose Noya on the background. Mug shot for the camera, guys. I've replaced my broken mug.
Mine's in the wash. Apologies.
Oh, Ryan Boniface. And of course, as well, Inspiration Nation face masks are on there as well.
Look at that.
Mine here now. Look at that. Inspiration Nation. Stay safe.
That's
and support the nation all at the same time. That is inspirationnation.org.uk. The final thing that's available on there is Joe's weekly blog. Just hit the blog tab. You can subscribe to the newsletter from Joe to get all the details. Just click the continue reading button, which I think probably segues us nicely back to where we were, Joe.
Before we do, when you were in primary school and the teacher wanted to talk, you may know this with kids, you two actually. Did you ever remember that they used to make you sit like this?
Yes.
With your finger over your
lips.
lips. Have you noticed that Joe does this whenever you cut him off?
Do you know what? And I haven't, but I have now that you say it, it's in my brain that he does do that.
He did it just then when you were like, I want to segue. He was like this. Bless him.
You know the reason I do that? You know
to keep quiet. I mean, the teachers put it in you, I guess. So
I do it to keep myself quiet because you know I like
we'll segue off and back in again. I was on as is the way of the world now, a video call earlier, and right at the end, someone actually said, "Can I just say something?" And they actually put their hand up, which I thought was quite endearing.
Yeah, I love it. I think there's a lot of endearing, a lot of that. I think it's a really good things that Lowe's behaves. I love them. So, yeah. Okay, so getting back onto this whole piece around this then. So I want one of you, because when we're giving feedback, and Ryan, you alluded to it a little bit, you know, we feel under pressure, we feel a little bit hurt, we feel pressured. And it's really interesting because I got when I was going through this really difficult time, which I blogged about, and everyone go see it, Lee's just talked about it, something came to my inbox, and I want one of you guys, well, who wants to volunteer to read it? It's the halfway down, it's about halfway down, it's like a saying, sort of halfway down the blog. I think I've bolded it.
Alice Walker on the discomfort of growth.
That's it. Yeah. Do you want to read it out? Because I think it's really brilliant.
To read this quote, yeah.
Sure you got the eyesight for this.
I might go a bit squinty here. It's all right. It's on the big screen. It's fine.
We're waiting for Lee then. All right. Go on in.
So, from Alice Walker on the discomfort of growth. Some periods of our growth are so confusing that we don't even recognise that growth is happening. We may feel hostile or angry or weepy and hysterical, or we may feel depressed. It would never occur to us, unless we stumbled on a book or a person who explained it to us, that we were in fact in the process of change, of actually becoming larger than we were before. Whenever we grow, we tend to feel it. As a young seed must feel the weight and inertia of the earth as it seeks to break out of its shell on its way to becoming a plant. Often the feeling is anything but pleasant. But what is most unpleasant is not knowing what is happening. These long periods when something inside ourselves seems to be waiting, holding its breath, unsure about what the next step should be, for it is in those periods that we realise that we're being prepared for the next phase of our life, and that, in all probability, a new level of the personality is about to be revealed.
Thoughts on that?
And I was just going to quote where that was from. So that's Alice Walker. You can go to Amazon. Living by the Word is the... But all this is from 1989, this, Joe. Head over. It's there on Amazon. Just 99p on Kindle. Head over now. Sorry.
Go on. You're going to
say like that.
Really loved it. Yeah. That really spoke to me when I was going through this real period of having this feedback and really feeling disheartened. And as Ryan said, that, you know, that we're not about ourselves. And I thought, I'm going through this for a reason. I'm going for it because I need to be better, right? Be better. So, you ever heard that saying about diamonds created under pressure? Quite like that as well. That sort of thing is like, well, you are under pressure. It's hard. It's difficult. You know, you've got tears coming out your eyes. That's a period where you just don't articulate it, and actually you're going to be better. So I really like that, and that's what my thoughts on that. And it just came in my inbox, and I thought, this is great. This is exactly what I needed. So, anyone getting feedback, difficulties, you know, just remember that. Come to the blog, read that. It'll just give you that sort of push.
And it's great. It's one of those things, like you said, Joe, because when you're feeling it, especially, it always often feels like you're the only person in the world that's feeling it. So to have something that kind of references, not only do other people feel it, but this is completely normal, is quite a reassuring thing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think when you're getting it, when you're in that emotional turmoil, you don't actually, like, we can all talk about it when we're not emotional. When you're emotional, it's really difficult to sort of step back. And I think if you step back and just go, oh, actually, this is something for me to be better. It's happening to me. Okay, I failed, or it wasn't well, it didn't work out. This is a period for you to like dig in. Know you're going to be a better person. Know you're going to be a better version. Know you're going to be stronger, and know you're going to come back swinging. And as the Simon Scribb said, we interviewed on the podcast, you're like a slingshot, right? You get pulled back, you fall back. When you let go, you're going to go accelerate even quicker forward because of the things you've learned from those experiences. So I really love that. So that's what's speaking to me. Ryan, any views on that?
Nothing that really you guys haven't already kind of touched on. I think a lot of it is hindsight's 2020, and I think you do have to live in the moment for the change to really take effect. I guess if you sat there crying at a piece of feedback and going, "It's because I'm gonna change," you're probably not going to change that much because you're too aware of it. I think you have to. What?
Is that impression again?
I'm going to clip that clip is getting thumbnail. It's going up on Twitter very shortly.
But I think as a you have to live in that moment to fully embrace it. Otherwise, you won't experience the full part of the change. I feel.
Yeah, and I think you're really proud. And I think the important thing is that if you do cry, which can happen, and you can have tears. I had tears when I had it because it was like really important to me. It's just recognizing that the tears are. It's just you can't express your feelings at that point. You just can't express it because that's how you are responding to it. It's just after it's gone, you think, oh, okay, now I can sort of look at it objectively and go, oh, okay, let me look at this and see what I need to do. So, yeah, I think there's a bit in it, but yeah, I know the impression you do get a lot of that, that thing, and it's just if you do get someone doing that, have you had that? Anyone had that done that to you? Where you've had that sort of, I know I have had it, where I've had to give feedback and struggle with it, and how you've dealt with it. I know I've had to just sit with them and let them express it. But I expect you guys have had that, haven't you? Right?
Nothing overly drastic, but yeah, on the similar lines. But I think the point I was just trying to kind of push home was that the more that you try and be overly aware of it, I think the less of an effect it will have.
Sometimes you've got to let the process run its course.
Yeah, you've got to be unconsciously competent in some of it deliberately, but not deliberately, if that makes sense. You just have to forget that it's part of a change process that's coming. Otherwise, you won't really change that much because you're really too aware.
Yeah, and actually, when I had this feedback, and it was a coaching session, so it was really powerful. I couldn't really make sense of it. I was talking, and overnight, the next day, I then got a sense of, I now know what I need to do. I'd processed it to now accelerate. So that was really interesting. So I really, it's a learning process, which was great. Right, okay, looks like we've got a couple of minutes remaining because I know we're coming to near the end, I think. So my last bit on this is about that piece of change. It's about, okay, so life's going to come along. It's going to smash you. So there's another quote I got in the bottom. Now I need someone to read it out. It's from one of my most inspirational characters. So I think Ryan, you should read this one. Okay. I think you should read it. Got the microphone. He's going to really put. Oh, I love this already. You can sense everything.
So this is a quote from Rocky Balboa. I'm too young to know who that is.
Is it Rocky who says this, Joe?
Read it out first, and I'll tell you.
Because if it is, I want Ryan to do it in the accent.
Who is Rocky? Should I know who that is? I do know who that is. I'm joking. I know who that is.
Oh my God, better say.
I know who that is.
Yeah. So obviously Lee wants you to do it in the words.
I'm not doing it in a Stallone voice. It's not happening. Okay. I'm afraid.
Okay. Let's do your best, your radio voice, podcast voice. Right? You adjust the microphone, haven't you? And everything's great. Okay.
Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody's going to hit you as hard as life. But it still ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, then go out and get your worth. But you've got to be willing to take the hits and no pointing fingers saying you ain't where you want to be because of him or her or anybody. Cowards do that, and that ain't you.
Oh, that is just, honestly, Ryan, mate, that was just great. I loved it. That just inspires me. That thing inspires me 100%, because when you get feedback, you feel crap. You then know that her life's come and punched you, hit you down, and you have still got to keep moving forward. And I love that. You guys, what are your thoughts on that? Just that piece there from Rocky about what are your thoughts on that?
Just about keeping going until you get to where you want to get to. I think that's the overarching lesson to be learned. Even if you get poor feedback or constructive feedback or really good feedback, that's not as important as getting to the end goal. You have to use the feedback you get to fuel you to get to your end goal. Adjust how you approach, adjust how you address things, adjust how you follow through with things until you align yourself to be on the right track, and then just follow it through until you get to where you need to be.
And I think the bit that really sticks out for me is the bit at the end about not pointing fingers. It's so easy when something's not happening or going your way, or you've had some feedback, to blame other people, to make it external to yourself. And I just think that, to me, it sits in the same mentality as the circles of control thing. It's not down to other people. Yeah, other people will do things, but that's not necessarily on you. You still choose how you react to those things, or how you mitigate those things, or how you respond to the things. That's still on you. And it's so easy to deflect. And I just think that if you're doing that, you're never challenging yourself and you're never growing. So I really love that bit there.
Yeah, I love the whole thing. I mean, it gives me goosebumps every time I read it. And when Ryan read it, I think, yeah, this is, when you feel in that place, is to get to that. And Ryan, you made a really good point about, like, when we get to our goals, you get to your goal. When we get to our goals, there's more goals. Like, we get to the top of the mountain, there's more mountains. It's not like it never stops. Like, our lives, like, are always going to be like, you're going to have your mountain, and then there'll be another mountain after that to climb. So it should never be a period where you think, I've made it. Once you think you've made it, you haven't made it. You've lost already. So it's so important that we keep growing. No matter where we get to, it's important to keep developing. And that, again, this is another thing from this, what I get is that you've got to keep moving forward. Like, if you get to this bit where you go, oh, I loved it, I'm now whatever, I got to this thing, you can't sit back and go, now these athletes that we talk about as well, like massive athletes like boxers, and they get to the top of their game, and sometimes they fall off, right, because they've done it. What else is there left? You always be looking for that. Once you're there, you can enjoy it, but then you've got to look for that. Okay, what's next? How can I challenge myself next? So it's really important. So
I see a lot of people talking about Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and people like that, and they're like, well, they've got so much money, why do they need any more? And that is it. That is literally it, because they know that if they stop now, then there's nothing else to do. They're doing more to make more, to motivate them more, to do more, and to change more. And that's the long and short of it, where it probably all comes from.
And that inspires me as well. When I hear people like Elon Musk, they're going to go to Mars, got backup, that's just massive thinking, absolutely incredible. So yeah, absolutely. I've got some comments on the Twitter.
I was just going to say this. There's two things I think before we wrap up. One is to acknowledge the fact that Ryan gave Joe goosebumps. I think we can't let that slide. And secondly, some quick shout outs.
He's not the first.
On Instagram. Nina joined us there. Donk joined us as well. I saw just a minute ago, and I have to get my squinty eyes on because it's on my phone. So some great comments from Nina. It said you're reading New Earth. It says the more deeply you stay in the present and not project into the future, the easier the task becomes. Accept or enjoy or be enthusiastic. Accepting might lead to enjoyment. It's absolutely right. It's this, that whole what's the word I'm looking for? Where you stay in the moment.
Present moment.
Mindfulness. It's really, really key. And that just, living in the present is absolutely a good thing for, stress management. And like you said, letting the future take care of itself. So brilliant feedback. Thank you for that. Right. Countdown is going on rapidly. I just need to shout again. Check us out social media. Listen to IN at Listen TOIN. Joe is Jose Noya-Inspiration across every platform known to man. And of course, check us out on inspirationnation.org.uk. Check us out YouTube and across podcast players. And if you haven't, please hit that review button. Leave 5 stars. We really appreciate it. And Joe wants to say something to wrap us up.
So I can't go because I missed you last week. So where's the book, Lee?
It's not it's not wrote in yet. I've got some good stuff to go in. I've just not done it yet.
How many weeks do we hear this same excuse?
3, 2, 1, InspirationNation. Catch you guys later.
No, Ryan, come on, let's hold him to account. We had a deadline last week because I just wasn't here. You didn't do it, is that right?
Pretty much.
Right. Right. So when is this going to happen? So it doesn't work, you saying it. What's going to work then, Lee, before we go? So next week?
No.
You said you had on the sofa.
I looked at it.
By the phone or some other.
Yeah, I put my phone on the sofa because I've got to go past it to get it.
There you go. Get past it to get it. Exactly. Thank you, Ryan. Yes. So what's going on, Lee? Come on.
I'll get on it. It's the behaviour's there. I just don't like writing stuff down retrospectively. It's not how I work. See, look, Nina's counting us down as well. It's time to go. And we have got 1 minute 42 seconds until we're cut off. Thank you, everyone, for listening, watching, interacting on Instagram. We love you all. Ryan and Joe, I'm not so fond of you. We will be back again next week, 8:30 live on Instagram, across all the podcast players and on YouTube. 3, 2, 1.
Inspiration Nation. Catch you guys later.
Don't like you guys.
So guys, I want you to know what was your single biggest takeaway from this video. I want you to put it in the description below and hashtag it with Inspiration Nation, because it's important that you take something away and work on it so you can get to your next level. So you can catch all our other Inspiration Nation podcast episodes right over here, so go check them out. Also, don't forget to subscribe, because that will tell you when your next video goes live by you hitting that amazing bell. So until next time, it's Inspiration Nation, and I'll see you right over there.